Okay, and we are live. Just let me resize this logo here, and we can get right into it. Maybe throw that over there. Perfect. All right, we'll give everyone a second if they're tuning in to hop into the live chat and talk about that. I can pull that up, and we can get that going. But for now, welcome to another episode of the Kids Table. I wish everyone a happy new year and happy holidays. It's been a while since we recorded. We put up that little sketch, that little holiday sketch in between, but this is our first episode in a while. So why don't you introduce yourself as my special guest while I edit the name of this title, because we have to do that when it's live. Go for it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Maya. We went to high school together. And I'm here to talk about travel and how my life is sort of all about that.
Yeah.
I grew up with parents who worked for a pretty big tour company in Seattle called Rick Steves Europe. So I've literally grown up traveling. I have been traveling the world since I was literally in the womb.
Nice.
So I know a lot about it, and I love it.
Perfect.
So yeah, that's where we are.
Sweet. I know we were talking a little bit earlier about how I had a point on an earlier episode about how I kind of think that it's a little bit of a crutch to, and I do want to make we're going to really get into about why I wanted you on the show, because I do think what you do and the traveling that you do is quite different from vacation. And I had an episode where I pushed back on the concept of traveling being a brave, challenging endeavor, and I could have worded it a little differently. I still believe everything I said, but what I was more focusing on was a lot of people switch the words travel and vacation. And a lot of people go on these like crazy vacations and they think, oh, I just want to travel for my entire life. That's all I want to do.
Yeah. When
in reality, like, yeah, everyone would love to vacation for their entire life, but like you can't, that's kind of what I was pushing back on. I know you slightly disagree or have some opinions about that, so please feel free.
I think that there's definitely a distinction between vacationing and travel.
What would your definition be of those two?
Well, vacationing is just going to some place. It doesn't really matter where it is.
Okay.
It's typically tropical, and there's typically lots of alcohol and just, relaxing on a beach.
Yeah.
That's what I would call a vacation.
I would agree.
And traveling is more about going to countries that you're interested in to learn more about the culture and the experiences that you can have there that you can't have at home.
Yeah.
It's not about going and getting wasted or, spending all hours of the day on a beach.
Yeah.
You want to go and have connections with people.
How do you feel about the concept of somewhat permanence? So I think if you're going to really push yourself to open kind of your mind and challenge yourself and really absorb another culture, I think there has to be this sense that you can't just go home.
Yeah.
And that you really have to be here and it's really up to you, or at least to some degree of that. Do you push back on that?
Yeah, I don't think you have to stay in a place for a really long time to be able to connect there. Like my dad's company, Imprint Tours,
which is up in the upper left hand corner to all of our viewers right now.
Our motto is travel with intent, you can see.
Yes.
And so whenever we take people to a country, we always make sure that there's some sort of cultural connection. We go and we see the main sites and everything because everyone wants to do that. And that is important in its own way, to go and see those famous things.
Yeah.
But we always make sure that there's some sort of cultural connection.
Okay.
Like,
what would an example of that be?
Quite often it's going into somebody's home and having a meal with them. Or going to a community and learning about the way they live. And of course, this is kind of difficult to do authentically with a tour group.
I was going to ask that,
We do what we can. We get as authentic as we can. A really good example of this, I think, is I was in Peru just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And we went to this community in Cusco, and, you know, they did demonstrations on how they made their sweaters and how they carried their babies on their back, and then they cooked us a meal.
Okay.
And something my dad said was he thinks it might have been the most authentic we could get when you have a tour group, because it's a show a little bit, you know. They say the same jokes every time, and they're sort of performing for us.
Yeah.
But they were so kind and friendly, and you just felt like they meant it, you know.
Interesting.
And so yeah, we try to have experiences like that.
How do you get in touch with these just like specific people? Like what?
Well, my dad, he works with a company called Peak.
Okay.
Which essentially has offices all over the world, and so they put together our tours for us.
Okay.
And then we look over the tours and sort of shape them to our style of travel, and yeah, essentially they put them together, and we look over them and make sure that we like the way it looks.
And are these people generally very happy to welcome these outsiders in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You know, I've never actually encountered any animosity while traveling, even though people, sometimes I'll say where I'm going and people will just go, wait, you're going there?
Yeah.
Like, I went to Egypt my senior year of high school, and everyone I told was kind of like, why are you going there? That's dangerous, you know? And I did not feel unsafe in that country a single day. You know, there were differences in cultures. I didn't necessarily feel like I would have wanted to be there alone as a woman.
Oh, okay.
Just because some of the looks weren't great. But I never felt like I was going to get attacked.
Yeah.
And the people were always very friendly. A lot of the women came up to me and started talking to me when we were just walking down the street.
Wow.
And it was really amazing. I loved going to Egypt.
I do see that we have 3 live watchers in the chat right now. Please feel free to drop your name, and we can interact with you in some way, shape, or form as we continue really getting into this conversation with Maia. So, one thing that I've always liked about you is that you're doing right now what you always said you were going to do in high school.
Yeah.
And I've always really, really loved people who have a strong sense of knowing what they are like, knowing what they're into, and knowing what they want to pursue. I think we get a lot of pressure. We experience a lot of pressure, and we're put under kind of the thumb a lot as kind of going through this high school phase, phasing into college, and kind of seeing like, okay, well, what's the next step, right? Is it school? Is it travel? A gap year is a lot more acceptable than I'm just going to take some time off, right? As long as you have that time window and then you're going into school, people tend to not care. Whereas as long as I've known you, which was ever since I was a sophomore in high school, it's I'm going to travel. I'm going to do this. And you hear that a lot from people. I've heard that I'm going to travel a lot from people, which is why I made that video, right? No one has ever done it like you that I know of. And not only has no one ever done it, like I don't even think it's close. You really live your life through this kind of mantra of I don't care what I'm doing, I don't care how I'm doing it, like I'm gonna be traveling.
Yeah.
And I think a part of the way you've done that is through your major. Do you kind of want to talk about your major and kind of what you have chosen to study?
Yeah, so I'm a double major at Colorado State University in Fort Collins.
Nice.
And I am studying natural resource tourism and creative writing.
Wow. So, that's crazy.
So I've always loved writing and travel, so I decided I'd just put them together, you know, because what better way to find inspiration for writing than going and traveling.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, if we're being honest here, I don't think my tourism degree is really helping me that much.
Interesting.
In terms of the job I'm doing.
Sure, but you are a tour guide.
Yeah, I'm an assistant tour guide for Rick Steves.
Sure.
And I work for my dad, too.
Yeah.
I do some social media stuff sometimes, and I'm slowly doing more with the actual touring. I ran our tour in Peru a couple months ago by myself.
You don't think your tour tour guide degree. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like that would
well,
apply directly to what you're doing.
Well,
right
unfortunately, it's not really a tour guide degree.
Okay.
It's tourism, which encompasses a lot of other things like fly fishing and hotels and.
Wait, you have a fly fishing class?
No, I don't have a class, but that's a lot of people are going into that sort of thing, like fly fishing instructors or river rafting instructors or hotel management. And since I'm in natural resource tourism, you know, the Park Service, stuff like that is more prevalent than, you know, learning how to be a tour guide. And I don't think there is a degree that can teach you how to be a tour guide.
Interesting.
It's just, you have to just learn it on the job.
So then, if you don't mind me asking, why school?
I love learning.
Okay.
I am a creative writing major because I love it. Okay. And I love taking those classes. And I think if I wasn't taking those classes, I would have dropped out by now.
Really?
Yeah, because the tourism degree is just not helping, and it's boring.
Well, it's very self-aware for you to understand that.
Yeah. But I also keep it because having a creative writing degree and only a creative writing degree is not exactly good for job prospects.
So just having the two majors
it just looks better. If I ever decide that I don't want to be a tour guide, or I do it for a couple years and then I'm ready to do something else, I think having a natural resource tourism degree is going to get me a lot more jobs than creative writing poetry.
Well, I mean, I respect the self-awareness of that statement. I've always kind of said, when you're looking at degrees, there's kind of two routes you can take. There's I don't care how much money I make off a degree. I want to study exactly what I love, right? Which is perfectly fine. And then there's the other extreme end of that, which is, I don't care what I love. I want to get a degree that's going to get me as much money as possible, right?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with either one of those, but there's a lot of in-between room there. Right, so maybe you're leaning more towards one way or the other. Maybe okay, well, I want a degree in, I really like playing video games, right? But I don't really think I should go get a video game design certificate. Why not study informatics, right? There's some wiggle room between there, and I do not think one is better than the other, but you need to be aware of what you're getting yourself into. Yeah. And that's kind of, I feel like you're very self-aware of where you're at right now. Mm-hmm. And you've weighed your cons and your pros, and you've decided that actually, no, staying in school is the best option for me.
I love being in school, too. I really do. It's great. And I love Colorado. I like being there now.
Yeah. And so you're at what school?
Colorado State.
Colorado State. Nice. Yeah. So we have some pictures that I think, if you're okay with, we can kind of get into kind of more of our main topic. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to pull these up right now, and we can kind of point by point go into these. And we have some time. Also, Emmett, thanks for the compliment. I appreciate that. I see your presence in the chat right now. So I'm going to go to this next picture, and hopefully I can it'll pull up really naturally. Let's start with this one. So let's talk about this one. What should I be knowing about here? This is Egypt, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I can blow these up too.
Yeah, that is me on a camel.
Nice.
In front of the 3 Great Pyramids.
Nice. Egypt seems to be, you brought up Egypt earlier.
Yeah.
Was this like a extraordinary trip in your mind, or what? Like, if you were to give someone advice on going to Egypt, would you say do it, don't do it, and if so, why?
I would absolutely say do it. This country specifically just has so many mind-blowing sights.
Okay.
Yeah, more than others, I would say, that I've been to. They have the pyramids, obviously, which, of course, honestly, those do not disappoint. Those are pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But then there were all these other sites that I had never heard of. There was a place called Abu Simbel.
Okay. So you're putting me on everything right now. I don't know anything that you're saying.
Yeah. No. So there are these giant carved statues that are carved into the cliffside.
Yeah.
And I think they actually had to move them because there was a flood where they originally were.
I think I learned about that in 6th grade.
Yeah, and then there's this other place called the Temple of Karnak, I think, and there are these pillars. They're just hundreds of feet tall.
Really?
And they've got all these hieroglyphs on them, and they're incredible. And honestly, it was just like every single day I was seeing something new and amazing. And that's why I like to talk about Egypt as a really great destination.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much to see there. And I never felt threatened the way that, I don't know, the American news media sort of makes it seem like.
Okay.
And things have calmed down a lot over there, obviously. But I was fine there, 3 years ago. And I think my dad is running another tour there soon, and there are lots of people who want to go.
Are there ever places where you might have had a tour before, or you would have had something set up or planned where you kind of have to be like, oh, wait, like, we can't do this anymore?
Well, yeah, actually, we were set to go to Egypt when the Arab Spring happened. So we canceled that.
Yeah, that's probably not a good time to send some humans down there.
I don't think my dad would have gone, but everyone dropped out. So
really?
We canceled the tour and we went to New Zealand instead, I think.
Okay. So that doesn't happen very often, though? It's like,
no.
Is that the only time it's ever happened?
That's the only time we've ever canceled a tour due to actual events in the country.
Political war?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair one.
Because or at least Rick Steves didn't stop going to Europe when there were like the Paris attacks and things like that. I mean, people signed up less, but they didn't stop. They kept going there.
That was a scary time. I was in Germany, so when that when all that stuff was going on, there was like a bunch of other stuff. Maybe not exactly when the main Paris thing. Actually, I think when was that?
I don't know. It was a couple years ago.
Okay, so if you're I might be misquoting this right now, but I do think I might have been there during that time, or if not, I was there directly after. And I was in Europe. Well, a lot of stuff was happening. I know in Germany there was a lot of weird terrorist attacks, people driving vans through crowds of people. And me and my friends actually ended up going to Paris kind of during this period. And when I was on the train, like, I was already super fucking late. And, like, my train, like, got stopped. And I was like, oh, no. And I was at this pretty big train station. And I looked outside, and there was just guys with guns, like, everywhere. Like, official, like, guard outfits. And I was like, man, like, I really don't want to die right now. Like, I was like, there's really nothing I can do. But I'm just sitting there, and I'm just like, God. Well,
actually, though, seeing men with guns in other countries is not uncommon.
Yeah.
It's pretty normal to have people walking around with big guns. And no one seems to think anything of it.
And that's kind of how I was thinking until they started searching our train for like bombs.
Yeah, that's...
And then I was like, oh man, like this really could not be good. I assumed, and I kind of just, I was like, no, it's gonna be fine. It's just protocol. Like they're being it. And it was at a time where it was the holidays. Everyone was being extra cautious. And it ended up being fine, but it definitely is a little unnerving when you realize that you kind of can't really do anything. You know, like this is where I am right now, and this is what's going to happen. I just hope that it all works out for the best. And it almost always will, right?
Well, I think you're bringing up a really good point about fear with traveling.
Yeah.
And this is something that my dad's company really tries to get in front of, because Americans are fearful.
Really?
We really are. A lot of that has to do with the media and how other countries are portrayed, but we're scared of going elsewhere.
Sure.
When our country is pretty dangerous
for sure
right now.
100%.
It's statistically, we're more likely to get in a car accident than get caught in a terrorist attack somewhere else. And
by not only statistically, but by a huge margin, right? Huge. The odds of actually being a victim of a terrorist attack are substantially lower, exponentially lower than being in a car crash.
So if people are worrying about going to Egypt, for example, you have to think logically about it instead of thinking about your fear.
Do you think that using a logical approach to someone who's just freaking out gets the job done? Or do you think a lot of the times that it's just not enough?
Well, okay, there are some people who just shouldn't go because they're so scared that they're not going to have a good time
regardless.
Anyway.
Okay.
But I think if you're the typical American and you're a little worried about going because you're afraid of all these terrorist attacks and everything, I think if you think about it logically, it can really help. And because it's all about the statistics. Like, it's not going to happen. And even if something happens while you're there, the chance that you are in it is also still very small.
Yeah.
You know, there was like 3 people got stabbed or something the day after I was in Israel. Like right where I was.
Like tourists?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Some guy just like ran down the boardwalk and just stabbed a bunch of random people.
Yeah, that's not what's up.
And so I think some tourists died. And it was like...
Aw, that sucks.
It sucks, but I didn't get caught in it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a whole day away. And that's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time.
It's a lot of space.
And if you think about it using a car wreck analogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you weren't on that tour in Egypt, right, and you were here at your house living your normal life, I'm assuming you'd be driving your car to places, right? You'd be running errands, driving your car. You are so much more likely to hurt yourself driving that car to those places than you are to be in that one specific attack on that one specific day with those 3 specific people.
Exactly.
Right? It's just hard to tell people that.
Oh, sure.
And have them kind of comprehend that.
It is. But I just go.
Yeah.
I mean, of course there are places in the world I wouldn't go to.
Somalia.
Yeah.
That's fair.
There are lots of places right now that are too dangerous for real to go to, but I'd go to Iran right now.
You'd go to Iran.
I would,
okay.
and I would go to Russia, and I would go a lot of places that people would probably go, why are you doing that?
Really?
Because the people don't hate us.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned that in Egypt primarily, but lots of different places. We went to Vietnam a couple years ago, and most of the people were so welcoming, and especially welcoming of the war vets who were on the tour.
Really?
Who fought in Vietnam.
You had war vets on the Vietnam tour? What was that like?
Well, I didn't really... I don't know how to talk about their experience because...
Can you repeat stuff they said? Or did you interact with them in any way?
Not a whole lot, but...
Sure.
I do remember one of them saying that they're really happy that they went.
Wow.
And it was a beautiful country, and they really enjoyed it.
It's a really good outlook.
Yeah, I mean, they were just so welcoming. The people were so friendly. And it's like they just understood that we are not our government.
Yeah.
That we didn't do that.
That's powerful. That's really powerful.
Yeah.
Jesus. I'm like thinking about that right now. It's like blowing my mind.
Yeah. I just, when you travel, you can't hold on to old views of the world of life. You just can't be like that. Like, I'm sorry. A good example is my dad is from a really small town in Missouri.
Sure.
And he went to Europe. And I mean, just Europe, which is pretty Western.
Yes.
When he was, 21 or something. And after that, he couldn't go back to that town and live there anymore.
Why?
Because his mind had just been expanded.
Sure.
And he had seen the rest of the world, and he couldn't go back to small town Missouri.
Yeah.
Like, there's this quote by Mark Twain.
Yeah.
It's, travel is something to bigotry and small-mindedness. It's fatal to bigotry and small-mindedness, or something along those lines. You travel, and you can't be like that anymore.
Interesting. And after that one experience, your dad packed it all up and he moved?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That makes you wonder, like, all the people that grow up and kind of stay in the same spot. Like, what?
I know, it's unfortunate.
What is their brain like?
I don't know.
It's really fascinating. Yeah, small. I mean, obviously small, but, as we say this, I'm definitely starting to appreciate an aspect of traveling that I definitely had never considered before.
Mm-hmm.
I've obviously been critical of it, but everything that you're saying, when I really think about it, it definitely seems to... I definitely identify and understand and appreciate everything that you're explaining.
Yeah. I mean, travel has shaped who I am. I have been to countries where I've come back and been a different person.
Wow.
And it's opened my mind so much, and it continues to do so. It's not something that stops. You keep traveling, and you keep learning new things.
Yeah.
And you keep changing your mind and your opinions. And
sure.
Everything just gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And I really think that everybody should do that. I think it would make for a better world if everybody was trying to understand how other people lived more.
Like, everyone was trying to understand everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely... Yeah, it's a very, very good point. And I think what I'm thinking about right now is when I made that episode being like, no, this is so stupid, how could I have phrased it differently?
Well, I don't think you really said anything wrong. I mean, because I would totally agree about vacationing and that whole, I want to be a travel blogger and, girls posting pictures of themselves in bikinis on beaches. Like, that's really, really different than what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And, I do have a travel Instagram, and I
follow it.
I do post stuff on there.
Also, after this video is over, please check the description because we will be linking off to that travel Instagram.
Yeah, and I kind of, I would like it if it got more attention, but also it doesn't necessarily have to.
Yeah.
People see it, and I use it as a platform to write, too.
Okay.
I write long captions sometimes, and I'm sure more than half the people who follow me don't read the captions. They just look at the pictures.
Your pictures are insane.
Oh, thanks.
Like,
yeah.
some of the pictures on there are like the safari ones.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit. Like, there's like, those are the ones where I'm like, oh my god, like, this is a real deal. Like, this is a real experience.
Yeah.
Speaking of pictures, let's just go to this next one. Because this is an incredible one.
Yeah.
So, I have no context. I have no idea what this is. You briefly talked about it. I barely understood what it was. So, why don't you put me and everyone in the chat on right now?
Yeah, so this is in Myanmar.
Okay, where is that?
It is in Southeast Asia.
Sure.
Used to be called Burma. I don't know. Yeah.
Heard of it.
Yeah. So this is the Golden Rock.
Okay.
In Myanmar. Somewhere
Why is it
in
called
Myanmar.
that?
Well, it's golden and it's a rock, really.
Yeah. And so for everyone listening on Spotify, for everyone listening on SoundCloud and on iTunes right now, you are not seeing the picture that is on the stream, which is, do you want to describe it? It's a golden rock, but it's more than that.
Okay,
right?
So what it is it's a giant boulder that is pretty precariously situated on a cliff.
Yeah.
And they didn't put it there. They found this giant boulder there, and so they thought, oh, this has been put here by the gods or something, and they painted it gold, and they put a tiny little temple on top of it.
And it quite literally looks like that if any person or even like if a strong wind hit it, it would fall off this cliff.
It won't actually, though. A bunch of people can go up to it and put gold leaf on it.
Yeah.
And it's part of the prayers.
Do they kind of keep it roped off so people don't try to mess with it?
No.
So, like, even if you wanted to, you couldn't knock it over?
I don't know. I was not allowed to touch it because I'm a woman, so...
No way.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Well, that's not the main point of this story, but yeah. Their religion does not allow women to go and put the golden leaf on the rock.
That sucks.
It does, but that is their religion.
Okay.
That is the way they live. I have come around to this in the last couple of years because I was really angry.
Were you a little apprehensive to that initially?
Yeah, and that's a lot of cultures like that.
Yeah.
And, as an American woman, and I would identify myself as a feminist, and I really do care about all of that very strongly. But I've also learned that it's their culture, and who are we to say that we're right? I don't know. I don't know if we're right. And so... just gotta let them practice their religion and don't try to change them.
Man, you keep saying all these amazing things, and I really do want to unpack all of them. We have more pictures to look at, and I think we will have time to get to them. But you just said, even though I'm a feminist, I don't know if I'm right. Yeah. And they might be right. So, if I can paraphrase,
sure.
The unequal treatment of men and women could hypothetically be right.
Yeah, I don't
that
like
is a
that.
Very mature way of expressing an opinion, because I am not even in that realm of understanding. I am not even in that realm of thinking. So wow. I don't even know where to go from this.
Well, that being said, I'm very happy to live in a place where that is not true.
Of course.
For my own benefit.
Yeah.
But... yeah, I don't know. I don't know that, and no one does.
Yeah. Do you think that there will ever be a time when women will push for rights there and maybe change the kind of the status quo?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, people just want to be treated like people.
Yeah.
And I don't... It's just such a tricky subject because I think, again, of Egypt and the Muslim women who wear the hijabs and everything, and there are all these people here in the U.S. who are like, oh, it's degrading, and it's this and it's that, and they're being forced to wear it, but a lot of those women choose to wear them. They don't have to. There are women walking around in Egypt who don't wear the hijab.
At a certain, when you're younger, you choose, right? You make a choice.
I don't know when it happens, but they don't have to.
Yeah. When I was in Germany, this was something I'd never known before. There was a girl named Anissa in German, and like she was in my school, and when she was Muslim, but when I first met her, for the first couple months that I knew her, she didn't wear the hijab, and then she just one day started doing it, and I asked her about it. I was like, oh, like, what was the change here? And she was saying there was like a point in her life where you have the choice to wear it or not wear it, and she wore it every day for the rest of the time when I was there, and I'm very sure she is still wearing that, right? And that I always just thought it was a requirement, not an option.
Well, there are countries where you have to wear it for sure, but and of course in Egypt even it's probably pretty progressive to not wear it.
You think so?
Yeah, most women still feel like they should.
They should.
But I also don't know enough about this to talk.
Sure. Well, don't talk
much,
about anything you're not comfortable with, please.
I think my perspective is that a lot of them still choose to fully, like they want to wear that because it's part of their religion. It's not all about the men trying to cover them up. Yeah. It's about them feeling like as a part of their religion they don't want other people to see their hair and their arms and all of that stuff. Yeah.
And the way you look at it is so much more mature than I think the average American looks like that, even regardless of your political orientation, because there's both ways of looking at it. There's like the very, very progressive way of looking at it, which is essentially we want equal treatment for men and women. This in our brain, it's important to add that caveat, in our brain, this is unequal, right? And therefore we don't like it. And there's also the complete opposite, more of like the conservative way of looking at it, which is like essentially, I mean, it's not Christian, so I don't mess with it, but you could make the argument that it's much more, I don't want anything getting involved with my life. I want to live my life without interference from any sort of standards, whether it be government, whether it be political prerequisites. And either way, whatever political perspective you have on that, it's still, I don't like this. Whereas I think you've kind of come, it seems to me, right, correct me if I'm wrong, you come around to a way of thinking which is much more, I don't understand it, but I'm open to understanding it.
Yeah. I just think for the most part people should be allowed to do what they choose to do with their bodies. If they want to cover it up, cover it up. If they don't. And that doesn't just have to be here. You know, that spills over into all of the rest of the world.
Totally.
Just do what you want to do, and who are we to judge? It's very frustrating.
Have there been any, I mean, that sounds like a frustrating situation with the gold leaf on the rock. Have there been other situations like that where you haven't been able to partake in certain activities or been able to?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I can't think of any right now off the top of my head, but a lot of the Asian countries and I want to say Africa, but mostly, Egypt and, just Egypt and Myanmar are the only places I've truly felt like I had to change for them. Because in Egypt, I did wear long sleeves for most of the tour.
Is that required?
It's not, but I just felt safer that way. Okay. There were a couple days where it was really warm and I wore a t-shirt. Yeah. But I never showed my shoulders. I would have never worn something like this. Yeah. And, I never covered my hair or anything, but I never wore shorts either. I always wore pants.
It's just safer.
Because that's just how they do things over there. And, wearing really short shorts and showing my shoulders is not very respectful of their culture. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, also, you can make the argument that you're kind of in their domain. Yeah, right? Exactly. You're not, this isn't America. Actually, that makes me think of another quote. Rick Steves says, when you travel, you should sort of suspend your American standards and travel like a temporary European or a temporary wherever you're going.
Yeah.
He just goes to Europe, so that's why he says that. But it's, you should just try to be like they are in their country. Just, don't be an American. Don't be that ugly American.
Yeah, Max Nelson says if your hijab is too loose in some countries, there's police that will murder you in the street.
Okay, well, like I said, there are countries where it's still a real problem.
Also, what's up, Max? I was thinking what would be kind of fun. I probably should have opened with this. Would you want to rattle off really quickly off the top of your head how many places you've been to? Is that even feasible?
I can.
Okay.
And
then we can get into the next
picture.
picture.
I always feel a little self-absorbed when I try to list
No. I asked you to be here.
Okay.
I am asking you to answer this question. You are not volunteering it.
Okay. I have been to Germany.
Okay.
Switzerland. Italy. Austria. The UK.
Okay.
Myanmar.
i.e. Burma.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's called Myanmar now. Let's be politically
not
correct
it's
here.
It's not Burma. It's not Burma. Anyone in the chat, do not call it Burma.
Thailand.
Yeah.
Vietnam. Cambodia. China. Bali. Tanzania. Kenya. Rwanda. South Africa. Zambia, Zimbabwe, Egypt, Israel. I think that might be all of them.
That's it?
Canada.
I was hoping for so much more.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite the resume.
I feel
that's
like
quite the
I'm
resume.
forgetting one or two, but that's,
Yeah, I feel like when you travel that much, you probably end up omitting a couple. Now rank every single one of them. I'm joking. Let's pull up the next picture. Boom. Let's talk about it.
That, we already kind of talked about this, actually. This is just a woman who came up to me in Egypt and started talking to me.
Did she just randomly came up to you?
Uh-huh.
What did she have to say?
I honestly don't remember. Probably something about how pretty my hair was.
Did you get that a lot when you have blonde hair?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that a lot.
Especially in Myanmar, actually, because it was sort of recently opened up to tourism.
Oh.
So, I mean, there were people staring at me like 24/7 all the time. And people would come up and take pictures of me. And at first I was very unnerved by this.
Yeah, sure.
But I kind of just got used to it because there was no animosity. Like, no one was staring at me in any sort of negative way. They were just like in awe of what I looked like. And I also had a lot longer hair then.
Yeah, it does look
hair
longer.
Was but when I was in Myanmar, it was like, down to my waist. So it was.
Oh, really?
It was long and blonde. Not here.
That's not there, right?
Myanmar, no. I don't think I have any pictures of my hair like that. But yeah, I got photographed a lot, and people would come up and tell me how pretty I was, and it was kind of an ego boost.
I've definitely heard that though. I've never been in a country like that where being white and being blonde or being essentially white blonde boy or a white blonde girl woman is kind of like crazy cool or crazy interesting. But I've heard stories about like you'll get followed, people will take pictures of you.
Yeah, I'm probably on
touch your hair.
Many Facebook pages.
It's very funny to me, like culturally, how such a normal thing here is such a big thing over there.
Yeah.
Being an American in Germany is always really cool. Like, less so. Ever since Trump got elected, they're like,
oh my God.
less.
I freaking hate traveling now that he is in office.
Oh, do you get a lot of questions?
I don't want to tell people that I'm from the U.S.
Do you get like a ton of questions about
it?
it?
It's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like one thing that happened when I was over there. It was during the election. So, and I think everyone in Seattle is in a bubble, right?
Oh, for sure.
I was so convinced that he wasn't going to win.
Oh, I was too, even in Colorado.
But like everyone I knew was like saying that he wasn't going to win. Saying obviously no one who I was talking to was like, I didn't understand how big of an influence he had in Middle America, kind of the Midwest part of the area.
I was scared that Colorado wasn't going to vote.
Oh really?
For Hillary,
Yeah.
But it did. It went that way, but barely, because it's a swing state.
Yeah, it is. It doesn't really matter because, like, Seattle and Washington is kind of always going to be, like, you know what I mean? That kind of left-leaning. So it didn't really matter as much for me. But I was so convinced that he wasn't going to win. And I told everyone that there was no way he was going to win. Like, I had never been more sure of anything in my entire life. And then he won. And then I had to answer a lot of questions about that.
Yeah.
I can imagine that being really frustrating for someone who actually travels a lot.
When I was in China with my dad, people would ask where we were from, and my dad would just say, Trump. And I'm like, stop doing that.
Really?
Like, my dad doesn't like him either. And he's like, that's what they know. And I'm like, okay, but we don't need to make Trump be how they see us here. Like, stop.
That sounds definitely a little, I couldn't even imagine. That sounds horrifying.
It was.
Alright, well.
Just like, shut up, stop saying that.
Let's bump up to this one. This one is my favorite one. I think this one is so rad. So, for again, the people who aren't watching the stream right now, I'll let you describe this.
Yeah, so this is in China. It is, God, I wish I actually remembered the name of it, but it's essentially a hanging monastery. It's a monastery that was built directly into this cliffside. Yeah. And it was pretty precarious to walk on. I did not like it very much, but we went in it and everything. Right? Yeah, I mean,
it's just
safe.
It's just
sketchy. Yeah. And this actually kind of ties into this story I have about the Golden Rock.
Let's do it.
Expectations versus reality.
Sure.
So, I think a lot of times when people travel and they're going to go see something that they've learned about their whole lives. Yeah. Like, a lot of people don't travel as much as me or as early as me, and a lot of people are finally getting to travel when they're retired in their 60s. Yeah. And by the time you're in your 60s, you've known about these things for a long time. Sure. So, the Great Wall of China is my example here. Everyone knows about it. Yes. It's, one of the wonders of the world on one of those lists. Yeah. And everyone wants to see it. Yeah. And I definitely think it's worth seeing. But it's nowhere near as spectacular as this monastery. Yeah. That no one's even heard of. That is somewhere out in China where no one speaks English. Yeah. I mean, my dad and I had to, we got on this bus, and then we got lost, and then we went on this taxi ride to get out here. Jesus. And it was so much better than the Great Wall.
So what you're saying is, what I'm hearing is the Great Wall of China is the stupidest thing.
No, it's worth seeing. It's just that if you have these expectations. Yeah. For your whole life about how amazing something's going to be. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it doesn't meet those expectations. And I think sometimes the things you don't know about are better, are more interesting. And I bring up the Golden Rock because, again, that was something that I had never heard of. Yeah. I went...
One sec, keep talking. I'm going to go check the mail.
Okay. I went to go and see this rock because my dad wanted to see it. I didn't even really care about it. It was our first day in Myanmar. We had just gotten off a 12-hour plane ride, and we were jet-lagged. And we go to this parking lot to where the buses are going to take us there, right? Yeah. And it's just exhaust smell everywhere. The waiting room has 3 walls, there's not 4 walls. We're just sitting there, and we're waiting. And we ended up having to wait for an hour and a half for this bus to come. And now my dad promised me it was going to be a 2-hour bus ride to get there, right? Which I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do this for him because he wants to see it. Yeah. And we get on the bus, and he talks to the driver, and he comes back to me with this sort of sheepish look on his face. And I'm going, oh my God, what? Yeah. And he goes, it's going to be 5 hours.
What the hell? Really?
And we're already on this bus. I'm like, God damn it, Dad!
Here we go.
And these seats have less legroom than frickin' airplanes.
Oh, really?
And there's this TV blaring this Myanmar TV show, so it's so obnoxious and loud, we can't even sleep. Sure. And we finally get off the bus 4 hours later, so that was a blessing in itself.
Oh, you guys cut into an hour. Yeah.
And we're still not there. It's just this gateway town, right? And there's trash everywhere, and it's horrible. Yeah. And we ate some questionable street food.
Yeah.
And we get to finally where these, like, giant truck-like things are going to take us up there.
Yeah.
They're, like, big open-bedded trucks that have little, like, benches in the back.
Yeah.
Super thin, uncomfortable, of course.
Yeah.
No seatbelts.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Disneyland?
No. I've been to, like, the California Adventure. Like.
Okay, well, for those of you who've been to Disneyland, there's a ride called the Indiana Jones ride,
Okay.
and you, like, are in this Jeep that literally just sort of
Shakes
tosses you
yeah.
around and shakes you a bunch, and that's pretty much what that ride was
But, like, in real life.
except in real life
Yeah.
without seatbelts.
Yeah.
And literally as I left, there was this sign that I read as the car starts to, like, go up the hill, and it says life insurance included in the ticket.
Whoa.
And I'm just
Jeez.
I'm like, okay, this is how I die.
Yeah, like, here it is.
And we
Thanks,
proceed
Dad.
to go
Yeah.
up these, like, hairpin turns
Yeah.
and cliffs that drop off, and
Yeah.
it was terrifying.
But then you got here.
And then I got to the top,
Yeah.
and it's almost dark, you know, because it's been, like, the whole day.
Yeah.
And we run to our hotel and drop off our stuff, and then we run to go see the Golden Rock before we lose the light.
Okay. Solid Golden Rock.
But we're stopped at the entrance. We're like, you have to take your shoes off, because a lot of Asian religions have this thing: you can't wear shoes in their sacred places, like in the temples.
Sure.
So we take our shoes off. We're trying not to think about all of the stuff we're stepping in as
Yeah.
we're walking to this rock.
Yeah.
And we finally stop, and we see it, and it was like the entire day didn't even matter anymore.
Really?
It was so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that rock, it looks like you could just push it off the cliff.
Yeah.
And it's there, and it's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
And it was such a wonderful experience. And the light started to fade, and they lit these candles all around, and there were lights that lit up the rock when it got dark. It was beautiful. And I think we only really spent about an hour looking at it when it took us...
After 5 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I kind of think this is when I really realized what travel was and what it was about as an adult, instead of a kid following my parents around wherever they went.
Sure.
Because it was a bad day getting up there.
Yeah.
But it is one of my favorite memories.
Sure.
Because it's so funny now. I mean,
Yeah.
all the stuff that happened and how I got there and how worth it was at the end.
Yeah.
I love telling that story because I had no idea what this Golden Rock was.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be one of my top travel moments of all time.
Really?
I mean, it's probably the coolest thing I've ever done out of
Wow.
all of this stuff.
Yeah. Not cooler than this thing in the rocks?
I
Because
don't
so
know.
far, I've seen this picture and I'm like, yo, this is definitely
Yeah, no, I
the
think
highlight
this
for
is
me.
definitely better to look at.
Yeah.
More of a interesting sight.
Mm.
But the Golden Rock is more about just what I had to do to get there, and how sometimes travel is not comfortable.
That's a good point.
You know, that's a real big difference between vacationing and traveling.
I was just gonna say that. I think I could not have said that better myself. Of where like being uncomfortable is important.
Yeah.
Whereas being comfortable to the highest level for a week, you don't learn that much or experience that much.
Yeah. It's not always easy.
Yeah.
And sometimes it sucks.
Yeah.
But it's almost always worth it at the end. But sometimes it's not. You know, sometimes you get to the end and it's like, well, this is terrible.
Yeah.
You know, they can't all be amazing experiences.
Yeah. So you've had some experiences that were...
Yeah, I mean, I've been to some places that I was like, okay, this is all right. You know, I feel sort of almost bad about saying that I did enjoy a trip because so many people don't even get to go.
Yeah.
But Peru, for example, if we're being honest, I did not think it was that amazing of a country.
Really?
I thought Machu Picchu was extraordinary, and I thought the Amazon jungle was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But other than that, I did not find it that interesting.
Sure.
And a lot of that has to do with how many other amazing places I've seen.
Yeah.
And so my bar is a little bit higher.
I'm sure your bar is substantially higher than the layman or the laywoman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're getting to a point right now where we kind of have to wrap it up. Is there anything you want to close with? Anything specifically? It could be something that you feel like talking about, or even just like a place that you would recommend that's lesser known? I mean, I'll leave it to you.
Well, my favorite place is Switzerland, actually. Okay. And that's not about sights or anything. It's obviously about the mountains.
Huh.
And I don't know, Switzerland's just magical.
Okay.
I love being there. I write beautiful things when I'm there, and it just makes me happy to be there for a while.
Sure.
But I think my list of places that I think everyone should go would definitely be Myanmar, China.
Not Burma. Myanmar. I'm learning. China.
Egypt. Switzerland.
Okay.
And
in no particular order?
No.
Okay.
I definitely have another one. Italy. I like Italy a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Kids Table. Thank you, Maia, for being here. And we'll get you probably next time in a week or two. And comment, subscribe, and check us out on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes. And I think that's all of them.
And travel.
And travel.
A lot.
And travel a lot. And we're going to link Maia's travel account, her Instagram account, maybe her actual Instagram account. We'll talk about that. And then, well, if she's okay with it, we might try to link off to her dad's company website as well. Mm-hmm. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to DM the Kids Table Podcast on Instagram or DM her once you get her Instagram information. Okay. Catch you later, guys.